Now Anaximander had a student, Anaximenes. Yeah, the Greek name's a little bit hard for us to remember. And here Anaximenes took issue with Anaximander's answers. And there were two problems, he thought. First of all, he was not happy with this unbounded, indefinite stuff. He could never find it. So he felt more comfortable with having one of the elements that he could see, that he could get his, well, you can't really get your hands around, but you know is there, namely air. Air was he decided, is the basic element. Everything comes from air. And now his teacher, Anaximander, talked about, the opposites being in this unbounded, and when the thing becomes, the wet is winning out on the opposites, it becomes water, and when the dry is winning out, it becomes land. But there was no explanation of a process. And Anaximander says, boy, there is a process that explains how air changes and becomes everything else. And it's the reason air changes is it gets compressed and it gets spread out. So there's compression, compressing it, and spreading it out, rarefaction. And he thought all of the basic elements you could put on a continuum. So if we're looking at compression, fire gets compressed together. If you stomp on a fire, you see the smoke going up, you get air. And if air gets compressed even more, he thought, gee, if you're compressing, if you're moving the air around, you get wind. And if you're sitting on the beach watching the wind come across, you see the wind produces the clouds. And as it compresses even more, the clouds get denser, darker, they starts raining. And the water comes down and hits the earth. And sometimes it gets frozen, so it gets particles of earth. Sometimes it just produces earth in the delta, and that's how you get earth, and that gets compressed more and you get rock. Now going the other way, if you spread things out, you start from rocks and you spread everything out. But he decided air was the basic element. It was the most like a theoretical thing, but it still was something that was there. So there were two things that he's innovated. He's first of all concerned that the theoretical entity that his teacher had was not a good one, could not prove it existed. Air, he could prove it existed. And the other thing is he couldn't explain how that particular item, that is, his teacher couldn't explain how that particular item got changed. There was no process that explained how it got changed, and he's explained that with a process. And now we're well along the way to developing empirical science. So notice what all the Milesians have in common is they found a basic element, and they're going to explain everything in the world as changes being applied to the basic element. And that's their explanation, their rational explanation, not appealing to the supernatural at all.